I'm also talking about electricity this morning, and we now have with us Dr. Sam Amadi, who is a former chairman of the NERC, and Mr. Rumon Daka-Wonode, who is a founder and CEO, ZKJ Energy Partners Limited. You're also the former MD CEO of the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trader. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Sunrise Elite this morning.
Thank you.
Dr. Sam Amadi, you have been on Twitter, releasing a thread of tweets saying that the power sector, it's in some kind of fisticuff with former national commissioner at the NERC. However, you have said that point blank, the electricity sector was designed to fail. Did you discover that after you left, or you knew that while you were on the inside?
Well, a bit of context. The tweet, like I said, the tweets were a response to a personal tweet, and I think the former chairman of NEC was right to say it should be off camera because as a family, probably come back. But the issue is raised.
Yes.
Back to the issue. First is I have taken a principled view, which many people don't agree with it because it's an interpretation of theory, basically that it's difficult to get preparation right, and preparation depends. The outcome depends on the design. Design includes things like, for example, sequencing. It also includes how I'll give you two examples quickly. First is that my view, and by the way, all of us came in when the preparation was already a policy, so we have no right to change anything. It's government policy. Our job is to do the best we can, including BPE and Bulk Trade and NEC. First is, I feel that it's better to have staggered the privatization. That's meaning you sell off, maybe let's say Ikeja, those were kind of more robust financially and technically, and then the market will simulate competition, and then over time you gradually divest for obvious reason that divestment has consequences both for pricing, both for employment, both for several things. Second is that I'm also of the view that perhaps between 2005, when the sector was unbundled by EPSR Act, till 2013 when we privatized, would have done more to corporatize and commercialize. And how does that matter? Until 2011 or thereabout or 12, we didn't have any audited account of the PPSN company, so nobody actually knew what it was. Up to today, I'm not sure they have a clear customer database to say these are our customer numbers, these are the classification of customers, because that would have also, we also feed into Power Consumer Assistance Fund, which is a device to cater for high tariff increase, which is inevitable.
But Dr. Madi, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah. This is what we have now. I mean, what you're painting is what you would have loved to see.
That's part of the design.
Yes.
Design failure.
You're talking about the design failure, but that's not what we have. What we have is what we have, and you knew that while you were on the inside. My question to you is, you walked with it anyway. Yeah. You were here on Sunrise Daily several times defending what it is that you were doing and how you're trying to make it work.
Absolutely.
Do you think that whether or not it was designed to fail, do you think that we can still work with it to get what it is that we're looking to get, which is stable electricity?
The answer is yes. And the solution, therefore, derives from a proper diagnosis of what's not working. That's the essence. The essence is not true. I'm totally in support of three things. That you should keep the privatization, revise at the margin. For example, by now, NEC, before we left, we had the independent ISO, independent system operator, which would have created efficiency in transmission. That work remained unfinished. So there are certain regulatory activities and policy interventions that could correct. No reform is perfect. So the idea of saying designed to fail is to point out certain failures. For example, the people who are supposed to take the asset are supposed to have acquired them with their own capital and then be able to borrow to finance improvement and recovery of capacity. Most of them bought with their own, with borrowed funds, and therefore they have aged out. They don't have enough room to borrow to finance, because this sector is a sector you finance and long term and start building your, for example, metering. You have to spend so much on metering, and then retail price is where you're going to get. And so over time, so if you have people whose financial worthiness is not strong enough, then the problem is that they're going to struggle, even with a high tariff, because that tariff is predicated on improvement. You see, the willingness to pay is that you're making some improvement and those tariff goes high. People now pay because they're getting more light. If somebody's getting 2 hours, for example, and the tariff is high, the incentive to pay is low, and the recovery, the revenue collection will be low, and then the settlement will be low, and then you come back to lack of financial viability. So the question of design to fail is my own critique of the framing of and the implementation, modeling, and also implementation of that reform. It does not mean that we are stuck there, and it does not in any way suggest reversing that work. It simply means we can now think creatively as to how to overcome some of these shortcomings implicit in the design.
Well, you headed MBET, Mr. Wonode, and there's some controversy at MBET right now. I think the current is a DJ now, is being prosecuted by ICPC for a totally different set of reasons. But looking at the electricity sector, you don't seem to be aware of that, are you?
I read the news.
Well, you haven't seen it?
No, I've seen it. I've seen news out there.
Okay, you have. Okay, just wondering, what are your thoughts in terms of where we are right now? What are we doing right that you think will get us to where it is that we're supposed to be going to?
What are we doing right? We're still with the privatization, you know. At least nobody has talked about reversing it. So.
Oh, there's talk around reversing it. It's just that the former minister says he didn't see any profit in that.
Okay.
He was going to send the wrong signal.
Well, so if the minister says that, that's the highest level, at least that's talked about it, that we know. But I think there are quite a lot of challenges that need to be addressed. The very first thing I've said is that we need to make investments in transmission and distribution. And without that, all the stranded capacity will not get to homes and businesses. And then there are the issues about tariff, whether they're high enough or serves. But you know, I have a totally different view about that. The problem I have with the tariff is the tariff does not offer the consumer any level of service, right? So if I'm paying 30 naira, I don't know whether it's going to give me 5 hours of electricity a day. We need to have a load shedding so that consumers can actually have some predictability of supply. We've talked about this about tariff, right? So at the end of the day, a few other people can pay 50, 60 naira for 18 hours service. Others might pay 30 naira for 5 hours service. But people should have a level of predictability around the tariff. Then I think Sam has talked about regulatory issues. I think there is a total regulatory uncertainty as the way things are. You know,
what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, so you have a tariff that is supposed to adjust based on some certain movements of macroeconomic indices, and it has not moved, right? So you'd expect things to happen, and they do not happen. For investors, that's quite a worrying signal.
Well,
right?
you know that that's a very touchy issue as well for Nigerians, and you know they will not want to hear of any electricity tariff hike.
No, but you see,
in the face of not getting stable electricity, or you're looking at the fact that you don't have meters. Nobody wants to hear about
No, that's not the problem, right?
In those situations.
About the tariff issue, right? So at least the distribution companies should know that this is the cost of providing the service, and this is what the consumers are paying, and therefore when government interjects with some form of subsidy, you know exactly what you're holding the discos accountable for. We don't know. We do not have that, right? You have to adjust that tariff and let people know. We don't know. So the industry, you have a shortfall that you cannot tell what is actually the shortfall attributable to the discos or attributable to not adjusting the tariff. It's not about transferring the cost to the consumers. That's a totally different thing. And if I were a consumer, I have to question exactly why I'm paying. It's not about meter. Meter is another issue, but the more critical issue is my service level. When do I see power? If I have a meter, is at home, and I'm in the office and there's power, and when I get back, I don't have power. It's useless to me, right? So the meter issue is being overemphasized.
Well, where would you lay that responsibility? Is it at the foot of discos, or is it at the feet of the regulatory commission?
Regulator has to set the standard. We've said this. The discos should be required to provide a load shedding schedule. When will consumers in certain areas expect power? based on whatever is on the grid. That is the more critical thing.
No, but isn't
than
it
metering.
DisCos that would know what it is that they have?
Well, the regulators
there?
have to insist.
And the DisCos file.
They have to insist. The tariff cannot just be about putting money and saying it's 60 naira. It has to come with a level of service.
You want to add to that?
I want to reinforce Rumu's very important point. 3 quick points. First, people argue that the DisCos say we have no tariff, our tariff is low. Before we left, we had what we called the regulation on tariff making. That says, henceforth, you remember in 2015, we said the DisCos will make their tariff. Do consultation with the customers. The idea was that, like you say, you have to tell your customers, what are you going to offer to your, what am I going to offer to you? So in that consultation, the customers will have a sense of service level agreement, which is what NEC was moving to. For example, the issue about load shedding and hours, we said you must do that. Now, if you follow that process...
That's the first one. What's the second one?
No, the second point it makes is that tariff must not be politically frozen, which means if there is need for tariff to go up, it goes up. When we were in NEC, we did 3 tariffs between 5 years. Why? Because it was necessary. So I'm in support of tariff moving but the regulator can say, okay, within this period, this tariff will be too high. We spread their recovery over 4 years. That's the idea of having a 15-year, 5-year tariff part. So that if this year the service issues will not justify an increase, you spread the recovery. But if the sector...
Gentlemen, I'm afraid we're totally out of time. I have to apologize to both of you. But we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Mr. Rumon Daka-Wonodo is the founder and CEO of ZKJ Energy Partners. And he's also the former MD, CEO of Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trader. And we also had with us Dr. Sam Amadi, who is the former chairman of the NERC.
And teacher.
And he's a teacher as well. Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.
Thank you.